Hi, welcome to Emmaus Heartburn as we open the pages of the Bible and allow Jesus to explain to us the things concerning himself in all the scriptures. Congratulations for making it through the first 5 books of the Torah so far. And remember, if you have not been following the Read Scripture program meticulously since January, don't worry about it. Just start where we are in this coming week. Our focus is on progressing through the Bible this year and not being unduly pressured to be perfect in the reading schedule. Remember, the key is progression, not perfection. As we cap off the reading of the first 5 books from Genesis to Deuteronomy, I plan to organize a fireside chat event with Pastor John Satima to discuss on a few possible topics related to those books. However, we would like this to be an audience-driven event, meaning we will only organize it if there is a demand for it. This demand will be measured by the number of questions we receive arising from the reading schedule thus far, that is from Genesis to Deuteronomy. So as long as your questions are linked to these books, you can fire away with your questions from any perspective or from any angle. Click on the link in the blog to submit your questions, especially questions even from your children. Would appreciate it if you could submit the questions latest by March 15. We look forward to receiving your questions and responses. As you read through Deuteronomy chapters 13 to 31 this week, you will notice numerous occasions where the death penalty is called for. Example for false prophets, false god worshippers, harlotry, and even for stubborn and rebellious children. Does this mean that capital punishment is a rampant feature of the Mosaic law, demonstrating just how archaic and brutal the Old Testament laws are? Well, we need to explore this issue further. You see, knowing that premeditated murder was the only crime for which capital punishment was always required, help us to better understand the context of the Mosaic law. Aside from capital murder, it seems that death was the maximum sentence when it was prescribed in the law, not necessarily the required one. Judges were to weigh the circumstances of each offense and then consider the offender's hard-heartedness before wisely applying the standards of the Mosaic law. So the death penalty is the maximum sentence. It's not applied all the time, aside from premeditated murder. On another note, let's observe Deuteronomy chapter 28 carefully to connect a few dots. Connection number 1, it is the 4th longest chapter in the Bible, so obviously it has a lot to say. Secondly, although there are equal number of proclamation concerning blessings and curses, there are 6 blessings and 6 curses each. Yet, out of the 68 verses of chapter 28, only verses 1 to 13 covers the blessings. Only 13 verses cover the blessings. The rest of it, verses 14 to 68, covers the curses and the consequences of disobedience. That means about 81% of the chapter focuses on cursing and its consequences rather than the blessings and its ensuing benefits. Think about it. Also, Deuteronomy 28 verses 49 to 57 reads awfully familiar to the writings of Lamentations when Jerusalem fell to the Babylonian siege several hundred years later. Could this be prophetic in nature? And also, think about it. Why does Moses spend a disproportionate amount of his farewell discourse on the negative rather than leaving a positive, team-building, motivational message, focusing more on the consequences rather than on the benefits? In fact, the prior chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 27, has an additional listing of 12 curses. After all is said and done, what did God ask Moses to do? Check out Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 19. Here's what Yahweh asked Moses to do: to turn the teachings into a song. Personally, I would love to hear Moses sing his teachings. That would be so cool. It might not make it to the Billboard charts, but I'm sure it'll make an impression. Well, we will discuss more about the Song of Moses next week. Here's an activity idea. Instead of just teaching the commandments of Scripture to your children, try highlighting the associated consequences of breaking the commandments. As my children were growing up, I recall sharing regular news items. It could be an article, a picture, or a brief video clip with examples of what happens when biblical commands are disregarded. Of course, these activities need to be age appropriate. You see, wisdom is the ability to be able to connect the dots between commandment and consequences, sowing and reaping. This is the essence of wisdom training and being ready for life. In Deuteronomy 18, in the midst of warning the Israelites about the detestable practices in the land of Canaan, Yahweh promised that he will raise up a prophet who will continue to proclaim his words, just like Moses. But what does that mean to be a prophet like Moses? Deuteronomy chapter 34 gives us a clue on how this promised prophet looks like. It says, "Since then, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. For all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to perform in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh, all his servants and all his land, and for all the mighty power and for all the great terror that Moses performed in the sight of all Israel." The Mosaic expectations of a coming prophet include the role of Moses as deliverer, covenant mediator, priest, and ruler. In fact, in the New Testament, when John the Baptist was asked, "Are you the prophet?" This is what John says. "It is he who comes after me, the thong of whose sandal I am not worthy to untie." John the Baptist was pointing to Jesus Christ. As the prophet, Jesus now calls us to follow him from death to life, just as Israel followed Moses through the Red Sea and was baptized into his name. And yet, he's greater than Moses. Jesus is the way as the king who rules, the truth as the prophet who proclaims, and the life as the priest who mediates. Truly, there is no king, prophet, or priest like Jesus Christ. He is worthy. May your hearts continue to burn within you as Jesus Christ explained the pages of scriptures to you on your road to Emmaus. We welcome your comments, feedback, and questions. Please post them in the comments below.